Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to go over something like the Inflation Reduction Act and sort of kind of drive home the sort of period we're in where we used to weigh heavy on the words of policymakers like Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen, but we're going to need to shift some of that weight to politicians and let's say professionals in industries, in energy, like oil professionals, executives. This is because a lot of the, let's say, energy will influence the decision makers of politicians. And when they influence the decision makers of politicians, they'll influence the decisions of the policy. Now, I understand there's a lot of people saying that, whatever Jerome Powell says that he's going to do, all of that is influenced now. What he's saying, what he wants to do, and what the Fed wants to do, they're all going to be influenced. And it doesn't matter if there's a Fed that goes outside and objects to whatever policy. All the Fed members, in my eyes, to me, they're a unit and they work together, to try and sort of guide markets or get the result that they want. So when you have a Fed, Kashkari or Brainerd or anybody that comes off to the side trying to give their opinion on what they should do, people are trying to nitpick those statements. I think those sorts of nitpicking sometimes is just too, it's just not good enough. What's better is listening to statements of Russian politicians, EU politicians. I think EU politicians right now, especially because geopolitically that can influence the US. And when we see something like the, let's say, Inflation Reduction Act, it looks like a trimmed down Build Back Better, or maybe Build Back Better Part 1. So we'll see what exactly turns out. But as a lot of people are pointing out, it's actually has nothing to do with inflation, right? This is what I meant by truth is going to be, fact inputs, all of that. I think it's out the window. Future bills and whatnot is going to be, I think, sort of similar to that. I think when politicians are making these bills in the Senate and whatnot, I think people have to start reading all of it, I know that they try to make a lot of it quite long for people to have a difficulty in keeping up, but unless you want to get caught off guard, I think you should start reading it, or at least, follow somebody that does read it. Maybe that'll help you, guide you. That's one of the points that I've been trying to say is that, let's say Jerome Powell, Janet Yellen, let's say they said, oh, we need to be hawkish, the dot plots or whatever, and people are trying to pick apart everything, say, oh, the Fed is going to be hawkish, they have to be hawkish. It's the winter. Let's say we're heading into September and October. People in Northern Europe are not going to have it. Have the people freeze. Policy between Russia and US is going to maybe have to make it that, look, we're going to have to make concessions with the war. And if that's the case, then the market will price that in. That's an example of how there's a policy plan and then all of a sudden, and so that's one of the things that I'm looking at currently right now. You do want to pay attention to what Russians are saying, what the Germans especially, and basically broader Europe and what their outlook is. The EU, the politicians, they can say all they want with we're going to fight Russia, but if their people gets angry, then they're going to change, right? And if that happens, the US may also need to change. Generally, what I've seen is that they're a bit together. They'll work with each other, off each other, and things like that. So I do expect that politicians in the US will be affected. You want to keep an eye on them, on what they're saying, what their thought process is. If you look at, for example, Joe Manchin, who said that he was never going to pass anything, not going to sign any bills or any of that sort. You can't listen to what they're saying. You want to see what they do. But the archetype of right now in our current politicians, they're all pretty much working in unison. This is not a conspiracy, but this is a national security, wartime movement, right? Wartime coordination, right? And so this is what Zoltan Pozsar was exactly saying. This is wartime elements that are going to be coming into play, and we will have a little bit of a difficulty in gauging what exactly is going on or what will happen. Why? We're not generally wartime people. And I'm not talking about the soldiers that were around the world in war. I'm talking about in that more World War era where down to the last citizen, doesn't matter where you were or what you were doing, was in some way affected on a much more consistent, constant basis. Joe Manchin, the Inflation Reduction Bill came out, he signed it. And you know what? Even though he says he's not going to sign anymore, I'm telling you, he's going to sign every single one. And this isn't because Joe Manchin's a bad person or this is what his true views are, his political leanings or any of that. This is because the status situation of the country. When it comes to the other sort of politics where there's a heavy two-side clashes, those are debatable. But when it comes to money, the economic part, that's where you do the framework of can they do this or can they not. And so when you have Jerome Powell that is saying one thing or another, you need to be careful not to be attached to that. Just keep your eyes on, basically, the way I would order it is geopolitics, like geopolitics fact, where energy and food, what's the room any country can actually move up and down. Are they being factual when they say, well, we don't need to buy your food or energy? So start with geopolitics, political strategy, then policy strategy. Generally, economic strategy should be first, but I place that up there at geopolitics. I throw the I don't want to say true economic, but non-negotiable economic strategy, like energy, food, and other parts of the market. And then everything else when it comes to policy decisions, basing on whether he's hawkish or dovish, stuff like that. I'll place that not as important as what I think politicians are going to do. You know, because before it was switched, right? And when Powell said he's gonna, let's say, the Powell pivot in 2018, this is why people started trying to front run him. Some still don't believe him. You had the pivot, which kind of threw people off. It distorted people. Then you had last year when Powell said he's going to really tighten down. People were distorted. They didn't believe him. That was part of the people. Then there was another part of the people who believed that he was going to do it, and he did it. So now the people that don't believe him is still like distorted. They don't know if to believe him or not. The people that believed him now believe him too. This is the tragedy of the situation. They believe him at every word. But here's the thing. Now, ever since after that war and all the way down here, we're here, his words are not exactly what you can go by anymore, And so just think about that. That's the tragic nature of the situation where people believed him. Then when he pivoted, there was, part of people that believed him and that didn't believe him. Fast forward to now, you have both sides a little bit distorted. Everybody doesn't know what's going on. Now you're gonna have to rehash everything. Everything's changed, right? That war is not just, it's still ongoing, but I'm looking around as if people, it's as if it's over. Until it's over, then it's not over. And I understand that there's a lot of people that are strategizing that it's going to be over this winter. Something like that is more on the geopolitical non-negotiable area, right? One of the top. Those are the things where you want to maybe think about first, and then see where do you go. Going off of what the U.S. officials are saying, where they're going to take Russia down. The energy tells a different story. And so when you hear people say something regarding that area, like energy and food, you can figure that out yourself. If you listen to what Powell is saying, you're going to be guessing all day, figuring out, is he right, is he wrong? Everybody needs to raise their safety concerns or defensive strategies up and lower risk down until past, the midterms and that area winter. Because EU and the Germans are not going to wait until December. If the U.S. is going to do something about policy, they're going to do it, before that time. I think what's going to happen is markets could bottom out for one more leg up, or we drop all the way down now. But the people that vote and has the biggest voting power are the boomers. The boomers have the most retirement money in the markets. The markets go down, boomer retirements, 401ks go down. I'm not quite certain that politicians are going to want to accept that. When you look at those sorts of factual stuff with a need for those votes, I'm not quite certain how much, again, the politicians want to drop the markets, right? And that because they're going to influence Powell and policy to have it a certain way, or try to, right? Don't forget to remember the things in this video. It's easier to listen to it and know it than to actually do it consistently, because it's more of a reality shift, a much more perspective change than what we were used to before, or what anybody used to make big decisions off of. Part of the psychology with this is that when you base really big emotional decisions and it becomes emotionally attached, it will continue on. And so what that means that all the people in the past that made decisions based on policymakers' words, hanging on every thread, they're going to be a little bit more attached to that. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to just read the data and move. Look at how they kept saying 25 basis points, 50 basis points, or whatever, and then they came out with different basis points than everybody thought. They literally they leaked that they were going to raise 75 basis points to the press so that the markets could, I don't know what it was, emotionally be ready for it. And then they just did 75 basis points. So be careful. Understand that maybe whatever has been working for you before, maybe you need to change. I think a lot of people are going to be unhappy with the fact that we're going to have to play it safe a lot longer than what a lot of people think. You keep a mental constant about the fact that changes are here. It will help you make those decisions that you need. Listening to what a politician says rather than a policymaker is going to be difficult for a lot of people, but I think going on forward, we have to put a little bit more value there, even though their words are valueless and maybe themselves. I don't know. And that's it for the video, guys. If you guys liked it, give me a like. And if you guys have any different opinions or, let me know in the comments. Hope you have a great day.